welcome to Launch Today, the podcast focused on what it takes to get your startup or new business to $1 million or more in revenue. From marketing tactics to incredible behind-the-scenes interviews, we focus on sharing insight from masters in their field with you for what works today. If you want to grow the revenue for your startup or your business, you don't want to miss today because our guest is updating fitness hardware with innovative 360-degree resistance training while navigating complex supply chain challenges in today's market. Paul Roberson is the founder and CEO of FLO Unleashed, pioneering a groundbreaking 360-degree athletic performance training system that's redefining resistance training. With extensive experience spanning operations management, corporate partnerships at Lyft, and strategic advisory roles in sustainable food ventures, Paul brings a unique perspective in transforming disruptive ideas into market-ready solutions. Paul, thanks for coming on the show.
Man, thank you for having me, Trevor. Truly appreciate it.
Why do you do what you do?
Somebody has to go into the dark to find the light on how things work. And why not that being it? I think going to the dark not only showcases who we are as it pertains to resiliency, but also will showcase to ourselves the ingenuity that we have within us once we find out the light on how to move things forward. And then after discovering it, that essentially becomes a bridge for others behind us. So bridge builder at heart, for sure.
I have done, something like 30 or 40 of these. Now, actually, wait, I just released episode 40, so I know how many I've done. And one thing I love is the difference between hardware-backed or hardware startups and software startups. All the hardware founders are like, why did I do this? I hate myself. I'm going into the darkness. Life is an uphill challenge, and I'm here for the fight. And all the software people are like, I've had a life of fulfillment, and here I thought I'd make something new. I love the difference between who the founder is, but also what they've learned. Many entrepreneurs talk about building product market fit. You're building physical hardware, which is an SOB, and you're now in an incredibly uncertain economic climate for physical stuff. Can you walk us through what you've done to validate and how it is you're staying alive in today's market?
Yeah, the validation, I think, came organically. It's all started with me scratching my own itch. Believe it or not, I wanted a hands-free dog leash. So the North Star was create a hands-free dog leash that moves seamlessly around my waist so that on my runs with my dog, I no longer will have to do the whole hand-to-hand leash exchange. And, doing the
Gotcha.
doggy dance, putting a leash around my back while they're trying to dog. Because let's just be honest, running sucks. So when I went running, do a run, a couple miles within 30 minutes, every time I took my dog with me, it turned in that 30-minute run to almost an hour. And it was like the core focus was how to make this a seamless experience, not only just for me, but for my dog as well. And so that right there was I guess you could say the blue flame to discovering how to build something that I want that did not exist in the market. And that mindset and that desire for a product that enhance an experience for me and my pup, that was essentially what got me through all the brick walls. And then once I got the prototype and put it on, having played collegiate football, so I stumbled upon revolutionizing the speed and agility training harness. And then from there, we just did a pivot, and here we are.
Awesome. The simplicity of the idea and then the complexity of solving it, I think, is part of what makes hardware founders just really sound like they came off the trenches from World War I. Because you can see this perfect thing in your mind, and then the amount of work required to get it to work is insane. Let me ask you, how many iterations did you go through before you've reached your current market-ready product?
Seven.
Wow, that's actually really good.
7 iterations over the course of 10 years, because it was 10 years ago is when I had that moment on my run. I wanted a belt that moved with me and wasn't stationary.
You still running with the same dog 10 years on?
Unfortunately, I am not, but I do have another dog right here with me, a Mastiff. And even though he doesn't run as much, he's definitely a strong pup when pulling, and it's easier for me just to sit my weight down versus trying to strong arm pull him back. So I still use the original belt, the first gen belt, till this day.
Phenomenal. So you go from this is a hands-free leash, and just this is something that's actually changing how athletes do resistance training. And I'm sure that was not a immediate jump. How did you make that discovery of what this can do versus what you made it for?
Yeah, it was literally the very first day I received a prototype in the mail from my engineering firm I worked with. And I put it on, put the dog on, did the spin. But once I did the spin, again, having played free safety at the State University of West Georgia, I was very experienced in training with equipment, especially equipment that is supposed to enhance or train you in regards to getting better in regards to speed and agility. And so as soon as I did the spin, I knew I had something bigger than what I anticipated having. And it's been a beautiful experience and adventure since then. So the original name of the brand, we're going to call it FLO Doggy, a new leash on life. And then we just pivoted to where now our company is FLO Technology. And that's simply due to the sensor integration that is to come after we get belts into the market. And it's FLO Technology debuting its initial product, FLO Unleashed. Train how
Gotcha.
you play with resistance. And we kept the unleashed there as a pun for where it started with the dogs.
It is. I like that. An inside joke is delightful. So
100.
supply chain is a real thing when you're building hardware. I used to be head of product for a Bluetooth microcontroller hardware company, and we were sourcing all of our supplies in Korea and getting them shipped to Poland, where we operated out of. Obviously, the market is moving fast right now in the U.S. How have all the market changes impacted Flow Technologies, or are you guys cool and everything's just fine?
Yeah, no, the supply chain was definitely a unique thing to identify, but everyone says, all right, we're going to make this in China or source things out of China. And early on, I knew I wanted to have more quality control over the product. And even though we have five patents, they're only as strong as you can afford to take on patent infringement, right? And so when it becomes trying to maintain quality control of a product or your supply chain, you need to think a little bit deeper than versus relying simply on patents. And so that is where we did look domestically. And fortunately for us, the past, I guess, 4 to 6 years, there has been much desire for many corporations and even us as a people to begin to manufacture things here in the US. Right. So we stand our own 10 toes. And so we are manufacturing our units in Reno, which is here in my home state of Nevada. And so that
Ah,
allows us to have a real quality control oversight on the entire production assembly, but it also gives us a unique competitive.
gotcha. Even with the sensors you're embedding now, are those are sourced from somewhere, surely, right?
Yeah. And so even our molds, we source them from China because even with the tariffs at like 140%, I think they reached at one point,
Yeah.
it's still cheaper versus buying molds here in the US. And you think about those economies and as it applies to economics. So we're just sourcing our molds from China, bringing here stateside, and this is where we do our tooling and setup in order to move things forward. And then as it pertains to the sensor integration, we're very fortunate enough to where these sensors already exist in the market, but the sensors do not exist on a platform that goes around the waist. So with
Gotcha.
Flow, us starting with hardware was actually benefit in disguise because it's almost like what NVIDIA did with the chips, the AI chips, right? Where now ChatGPT, they build all their systems on top of their platform, which is the chip. And so that is how we look at Flow Technology. We have the platform to do the sensor integration. And it's really just a design play Because again, luckily we don't have to build sensors. They already exist off the shelf in the market.
I get that. So the market, sorry, the fitness industry is saturated with revolutionize your workout. How do you differentiate from everybody else out there with, I remember the shake weight and there's these gimmicky things that are silly. I don't think Flow Unleashed is in that category, but I do think people might assume it is if you don't pull yourself away from them in the marketing. So how do you talk about yourselves differently than some of the sillier stuff out there?
Yeah, so we actually don't talk about ourselves, to be honest. So we are actually leading with product experience. And our pathway to going to market, we're actually doing a top-down approach. So our strategic partners and those who are, we're a B2B. So our initial clients are the Pittsburgh Steelers, Atlanta Falcons, the University of Tennessee, BYU University. And that's just to name a few, right? And we have a lot more in the queue. So with that being said, and having that top-down approach, we're leading with product. I go into meetings. So I was with the Arizona Cardinals 2 weeks ago. And as soon as I walk in the room, I'm just like, here, put the belt on. Let the belt speak for itself. And they get the twirling around and training with it. And they're the ones now talking as if they're the founders. This is great. This can do this. We can do this with the curriculums. And so again, I haven't felt like I had to pitch in a long time because I have the product. And even with investors, I'll take the belt, and the investor may not even be an athlete, but they may own a dog, right? There's 90 million households in America that own dogs. So if they're not an athlete and they're a dog owner, I'm like, here, put the belt on. Now imagine you're walking your dog, do a spin. And they're like, oh, and we're pre-seed. So there's not really much numbers to dig into. It's really just, do we have a supply chain? Yes, we are manufacturing these domestic. Do you guys have product market fit? Yes, we're B2B doing a top-down approach. We already completed a 5-month pilot with Pittsburgh Steelers. And do you have the ancillary avenues? Because we are intellectual property. So we're not married to the sports vertical industry. The sports vertical is just low-hanging fruit. But as it pertains to our intellectual property, FLO can be repackaged as a hands-free child leash for those moms that like to put their kids on leashes. It could, we could potentially do a licensing deal with Black & Decker if they want to come out with a 360 tool pouch, or Kodak. They want to do a 360 action photographer lens though. So the upside and potential on where we can take our IP and what verticals it can contribute introducing a new solution, it gets very interesting, and that's where it gets fun. And that's where the adventure begins.
Gotcha. So the cost of building a software startup has dropped and dropped. I've been in this space for so long. Back when I started, you'd raise a $4 million round on a deck because it was crazy to expect that a founder could execute any software without the money. And I built 4 AI products in the last 2 months with a combined development expense of $160, right? Like the difference has just come. Hardware is still hard. You can definitely reduce the cost, but not, what is that? 100,000%? What can you do as a hardware founder to make it more affordable to launch a hardware startup? Because even in the hardware space, investors are not cutting checks like they used to.
Yeah. And so one thing that we're focused on is having a vertical integration with our manufacturing. So the first step is really just getting the mold stateside, right, from China. And we're very fortunate to where our molds, they give us a runway of 500,000 units. So
Yeah.
with that being said, that presents us with the opportunity to not lean on let's just say, a manufacturing facility in Reno to continue doing that manufacturing throughout. So once we hit a certain price point in net profits, we will be reinvesting in consolidating not only our fulfillment and inventory warehouse, but also our manufacturing assembly line. So that is the benefit with also where technology is and where we're going, especially as it pertains to robotics. And we're not really counting on robotics to have a strong application to our manufacturing process, but that is what gives us unique insights on what flow technology, not flow and leash, but flow technology may have an advantage of in 10 years and beyond. Especially as we start working on building the foundation to do our own manufacturing.
Got it. So molds are maybe a difference since last time I was doing it. Still pretty expensive, right? You need like 20 grand to make a mold, at least back when I was doing it. Is that still the case? Did you pocket fund that, or did you have like a friends and family round to make that go?
Yeah, so molds are still expensive, right? For us, it's a pay to play. So for us to get our molds here stateside, get set up and everything of that cost, we're looking at roughly around $250,000.
Okay.
But again, that gives us the runway for
Oh yeah.
500,000 units. And at that price point, that puts us in a unicorn status if we sell 500,000 units of hardware with pairing that with our sensors, which brings in the subscription model. So that is where it makes it highly unique in that regard. Sorry if I didn't answer that question correctly.
Oh, no, it's fine. I hadn't even considered just the cost of the injection mold. I mean, they start like 20K and go up. And so my question was more around, so you're saying it was $250,000, which is definitely even a bigger check.
Yeah. And so out
Is
of
that from
pocket,
a pre-seed, like a pre-seed, or was that you and some friends got investment money again? Like, how do you make that first step to get to where you've got basically all the copies of this that you're going to need for a long time?
there we go. Yeah. So we just kicked off a pre-seed round. I personally have bootstrapped the company to get it to this point. All the CAD designs, the 3D prints, the hardware, the man hours, right? Contracting the engineering firm to get us our prototypes, the patents. I took all that cost on myself. So I'm probably 200K in the hole. But again, this has been since inception, since day one. So you got to amortize that over 10 years to get it to this
Yeah.
point. And,
That's
there's
just
a
a
strong,
really expensive hobby.
it's a really expensive hobby until you start attracting high level executives and movers in the
Yeah.
industry that we've been fortunate to attract.
Yeah.
And doing that work on the founder, doing that work on their own prior to bringing people on board actually shows a certain level of commitment from the founder. It displays a certain level of tenacity and resiliency for the founder to get it to that point. And when the people come on board, it provides them a level of confidence and credibility that this is a well-built ship that they can join and add value to immediately without having to deal with the little nuances of just getting something up to this point.
Gotcha. That makes a ton of sense. At pre-seed round, your investors are investing in you more than the company anyway. And seeing that you have that kind of grit and that kind of commitment over a decade to have just way too expensive a hobby for very little outlay for a decade is that does show that grit, right? So you built the tech on how you even build the things you're building has changed over time. But I think the systematic process for what you do to start a hardware startup is probably not changed a lot. If you were to start a new hardware startup today from scratch, what's your 90-day checklist? What is it that you want to make sure you do first so that you increase the chances of success?
Yeah. So it's funny. I'm a man that's not short of ideas. And so I have kicked this around a few times on what would I do, but most importantly, and I think the most important mindset perspective a founder can have is trying to be mindful of what to do. Because at least if you
Yeah.
stay mindful of that, that will save you time and money, which is a powerful frame of lens to see things. But I would definitely start with some interviews. Start with talking with your potential buyers on if even if they would see this being of interest. For me, I was the ex-athlete. So it's not like I was an engineer who said, I'm going to make this for athletes and they're just going to like it. So it's just, and if I was just an engineer without that experience, I probably would have had to interview some trainers, some coaches to see hey, would you guys like a 360 rotational harness? How would you use it? But because I have that experience of playing collegiate ball at a high level, I was able to provide those answers and have that understanding myself. So that is why it gave me the opportunity to invest in patents first, or I even had my first prototype. I got my first patent in 2018, in 2018, prior to even having a functional prototype. So that was a
Gotcha.
gamble I took, but the gamble was based on my experience as an athlete. Anyway else, I was definitely start off with interviewing your potential clients though, to just get at least product market fit.
Makes a lot of sense. A lot of founders get caught trying to make perfection, and they all put off the launch and put off the launch and put off the launch because it's just one more feature, one more thing, one more whatever. You've already mentioned that some retooling you will do as money comes in and makes FLO Technologies really a going concern. What were these compromises, and did you make them knowing you would have to make the change, or is it just you got here and went, ah, crap, there's stuff we got to do differently when we scale?
Yeah, no, you definitely have to measure the, I guess you say the incremental benefit of transitioning away from the main thing and adding a new thing to the main thing. And my optics and way we work, and God bless, me having a co-founder such as Cameron Bell and Roger Moore. But Cameron, Cameron and I, we spearheaded the Lyft market together here in Nevada. He was essentially our fractional like market CFO, for lack of better terms. And so we agree, and we're focused on keeping the main thing. And we are more so progression over perfection. Those are essentially our mottos on how we are able to keep things on track. And so that we're actually meeting our deliverables on time or sooner. And that is how we're able to move fast and not crash by keeping the main thing and just have it one bite at a time. There's power. There's power in the turtle and the hare story.
There you go. As long as the turtle doesn't give up. Totally agree. So, you mentioned on LinkedIn about being a role model for your children as a core motivation. I think founders who have kids bring a whole different perspective to the business than your 20-year-old stereotypical Facebook genius founder. What do you think having kids has done to inform your business sensibilities?
Emotional intelligence, 1000% emotional intelligence. And even being a founder with no kids, like building something net new, is going to teach you emotional intelligence as long as you stay in the pocket and don't give up. Because it's those times where you want to give up and you stay in the pocket and fight back is where you're able to sharpen and enhance your emotional intelligence and understand how to navigate those tough times that you deal with, that we all deal with emotionally, because everyone has a unique set of problems outside of what they're building. Everyone has certain variables. They have some family issues. That's a variable. Sometimes they have the day job issues. That's a variable. Sometimes they have health issues. That could be a variable. Not making enough money. So it's just what you call a melting pot of complaints that we complain about, or we can marinate in it, soak in it, and try to understand everything and how to process. Because I think once you are able to, you got IQ and EQ, and hopefully both of those together give you the power on how to digest rough times and continue moving forward. And that's why I say progression over perfection, because the pathway is never straight when it comes to entrepreneurship. It's never straight unless you're a billionaire, right? And you paid. But outside of that, it's never straight. Yeah, with kids, it's always something every day. Like I can look around my house and find, new portraits drawing on the wall with Crayola or crayon after my kid just promised me that they wouldn't draw my wall. And so I think that right there within itself, you can never put your trust in kids, but you can always put your faith and hope in kids. And so
There
for
you go.
entrepreneurs, you never put your trust in other people or trust in investors going to come through after a verbal commitment, but you put your faith and hope into it. And it'll be a learning lesson if they don't, because I don't know if this is appropriate, but entrepreneurship does have many moments of blue balls, for lack of better words. And I associate blue balls with extreme disappointment. And it's agnostic. So it's like men and women can get the experience of what it's like with that deep letdown. And sometimes it's gut wrenching, but again, picking ourselves back up, putting our boots back on, going back into the dark to figure out how things work. That is what investors can, not your product, but you.
I got to ask, how old are yours?
I am in the trenches. I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 6-month-old.
Woof. Oh,
Yeah. So
man.
so I am the star of this Ringling Brothers circus, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I was a football player since I was 7 years old, and you just always deal with many personalities, right, on a team. Everybody's playing different positions, everybody's playing different roles. And if you're the team captain, your whole goal and focus is how to communicate and keep people on task and call out the play by play. And so every morning I wake up, I'm the team captain and I get to call the plays, and I know the kids' personalities. I know what kid can go get a bottle. I know what kid can help change a diaper, and what kid I can trust to put peanut butter on their crackers. But again, it's having that understanding and knowing how to navigate and utilize the variables you have when you're dealing with, to where everything looks copacetic on the outside, but it's just organized chaos on the inside.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I have a 9-year-old and twin 6-year-olds. And so I can tell you with some authority, really going into 6 is when you'll start to see more agency, more clarity. It's a little, you begin to be able to put more faith in them. So you're just there, Paul. Hang on. Let me ask you one
I
last.
just remember the breed. I just remember the breed.
That's it. Yes, yes. I'll tell you what. When I had 2 6 months old simultaneously, just the endless parade of mouth to butt to mouth to butt. It was a tough thing, man.
Twins. Wow.
Yeah, twin 6-year-old was quite a
Bless your
thing.
heart.
Yeah, but we got through. Here I am, somehow still alive. I won't lie. I gained 25 pounds I've yet to lose going through all that. One of these days, I'll get back on the health track. As you might be able to tell from my background, I like a good book. I like to find ways to put information in my head. And books, podcasts, audiobooks, like any of them is a valid way. But I think a founder should be putting new stuff in their head all the time. What's your favorite resource, book, podcast, audio, whatever, that you think a founder should pay attention to?
Honestly, really all the things that they're not, because I've been able to fortunate to have many different variety of experiences. My first career coming out of college football is I worked nightlife, hospitality. Then from there, I went to law enforcement. And I was child protective services. Then I worked in academia as a director of STEM before I landed in entrepreneurship. And with that, it's those different experiences and the different perspectives that equip you with the understanding of how not to move and what not to do. And that's powerful within itself. And it actually allows you to understand the why nots behind something.
Awesome. So I appreciate you taking some time today to share your story, to share what you've been doing with FLO Unleashed. I think as you identified from the first answer, you've chosen the dark path. You're fighting your way out to the light. Other founders, I hope, take inspiration from it. If they want to know more about you and more about FLO Technologies, where do they find you online?
Yeah, they can find us at flounleash.com. They can also find me on LinkedIn, very accessible. LinkedIn is essentially my second phone. And then if they really can't get a hold of me, they can just reach out to Trevor, who we have a personal relationship with.
There you go. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. If you have not yet and you're watching this, like, subscribe, follow, verb, whatever you want to do for more great insights every week from founders just like Paul. Thanks so much, Paul.
Cheers, mate.
See y'all next week.